everyone, welcome back to a new episode of Dragon Squadron. You might be hearing an unfamiliar voice. I'm Karan. I'm one of the new co-hosts for the podcast this year, and let's just go around and get everyone else introduced as well.
I'll go. I'm Brian. I'm one of the old co-hosts, but now I am Club Grandmaster or President, so very exciting.
Hi, I'm Liam. I'm also a previous co-host. No longer a host, but still here because I love talking about Star Wars. I'm going to keep coming on the podcast.
What's up, everyone? I'm Anish. I was not a host last year nor this year. I was the founding president of the club, and I was a Force Ghost last year and this year as well. I'll just keep coming on now and then just to talk about Star Wars because it's fun.
Awesome. So before we get into the meat of today's topic, which is the Jedi Survivor game, we're going to go through some brief updates on the fan film, Comic-Con, and the Ahsoka trailer. So, Brian, Anish, you guys want to go?
Yeah, I'll talk about the fan film. As you guys know, I directed the club's fan film along with Shane. He directed the fight portions. We wrapped filming in literally the end of finals week. And so we're in the middle of editing right now in post-production. Really exciting stuff. We will have it out by sometime in fall quarter. So look out for that.
Awesome. Okay, Comic-Con.
I will be there.
Oh, awesome.
I will be there as well.
I will not.
I am not
wanna,
in San Diego. Yeah.
But I kind of
That's
want to just hang out outside the convention center and see if I can get free shit. But I don't know if that's how it works.
It's gonna be so crowded.
That's the way to do it.
Well, because I know that they used to do stuff for people without badges before COVID, but they stopped doing that.
There's still a bunch of stuff happening in Gaslamp, so.
But yeah.
But yeah, in terms of Comic-Con, in terms of what we're gonna see, we're recording this podcast on Saturday, July 15th. And yesterday, the actors just went on strike. So in terms of Star Wars, I would not expect anything in terms of movies, shows, obviously, just because the writers, actors are on strike. But what we can expect is books. So Liam, do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, so we do know that there are some Star Wars authors going to be there. There's a Lucasfilm publishing panel happening. I know, who are the authors that are going to be there? I know Delilah S. Dawson is going to be there with
Delilah Dawson, yeah. There's going to be a decent number of High Republic people. Charles Soule's going to be there. George Mann, Kevin Scott, I believe E.K. Johnston, and then I may be forgetting more people, but yeah.
And Sam Maggs is also going to be there, not at that panel, but she will be in other panels. She's the one who wrote the Battle Scars novel, which I read and I will be talking about on this podcast. Also, Mark Thompson is going to be at the Lucasfilm Publishing panel, who does the voice of a lot of the Star Wars audiobooks, and he does the most amazing Thrawn voice in the Thrawn books. And I love him very much, and I cannot wait to meet him.
Yeah, it's all super exciting. And then we've also got 2 new books dropping pretty much in and around Comic-Con. We have the new Inquisitor Rise of the Red Blade novel by Delilah S. Dawson, and the new High Republic novel, Tales of Light and Life. We're just going to bridge the gap between phases 2 and 3. So super exciting stuff at Comic-Con.
Yeah. And I think Anish brought up the strike. I think that's something to just bring up. But that's really important stuff that they're striking. And I don't think that means that we won't get any real announcements, because I feel like Disney's still going to want to announce stuff to generate hype, even though they know nothing's going to happen, just because they're Disney.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, I honestly think they might even skip announcements at Comic-Con because there's another D23 happening, and they'll probably just save all their announcements for their own big convention. So
when's D23 this year?
I forgot.
In August-ish, right?
Okay.
At least last year was around August, September, I think.
Right.
I think it is in September. I can't quite remember, but there is another one.
Got it. So it'll happen around the Ahsoka release then. Yeah. Okay, speaking about Ahsoka, let's talk about the new trailer. Anybody want to go first?
Lars Mikkelsen is Thrawn.
Oh my god. He
Yeah.
looks like, I saw someone on Twitter say this, that he looks like Elon Musk.
Yep.
I can't
Shitty,
get it out of my head.
with
Yeah.
shitty blue color film
Yeah.
on his face.
Yeah.
And I like it because Lars Mikkelsen did an amazing job as Thrawn in Rebels. but I hate it because, like Anish said, like I can't get that image out of my mind.
Yeah.
I'm sort of mixed on it because like I will say it's just like one image, one like short clip we're taking out of context. So like I'm sure once we get the voice in, it'll flow a bit better. But also like we have to remember that the Kenobi series, which came out about a year ago, had some questionable makeup with the Inquisitors, right? This could be probably something along those lines as well. I don't know, because Ahsoka is going to have a lot of alien characters, right? You have Thrawn, you have Hera, you have Ahsoka herself, but she looks amazing. And then
Yeah,
probably
and like
others too, yeah.
speaking of Hera too, also
Her voice is going to take some getting used to.
for
That's the thing, yeah.
for me personally, I feel like they did her dirty with the makeup and like.
I thought it at least looked better than Thrawn, so I was happy
No,
about that.
yeah, it
It
definitely
did-
does.
it
Her,
did.
but,
her
like,
eyes
but her-
were a little,
it's just like the
only
eyes
for
and
a
like
yeah.
same with Ahsoka's eyes. Like
yeah.
Yeah.
they're just so light. It's just like off.
I think
so off-putting.
to an extent it's just an adjustment because like Rebels was like really, really stylized, right? So like
Yeah.
we
Yeah,
have
I
to
think
get
they're
used
trying to
live action.
imitate the way that they did the eyes in Rebels, and it's like you
Yeah,
can't
but-
translate that kind of animation to live action. It just doesn't
Yeah.
work.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It just looks like that meme where it's like people with blue eyes looking at you.
Yeah.
Literally,
And like there's like it's like the
Yeah.
eyes
the
are
eyes are
just
like coming out of
just
their
like,
face, and it's like
It is
Okay.
it's
Like,
it's a
please.
bit of an uncanny valley. That's the right word, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a bit weird.
Yeah.
But one thing I will say is that Sabine and Ezra both look and sound like really on point, right?
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
we got like one line from Ezra in the hologram, but like that sounded like Taylor Gray from Rebels straight up, right? And then even Sabine like looks and sounds like really accurate to how she was in Rebels. So
Yeah.
I'm excited for it.
Yeah, I am too.
For sure.
I also saw something that I think was really cool is that the mural is painted in Rebels art style.
Yeah.
And then so there's like how Rebels is like in Sabine's art style, which I think is really cool.
That's a really cool way to think about it. I like that.
Yeah.
And also
Awesome.
thank God she's cutting off her hair because I'm sorry.
Yeah. Long hair Sabine. I
The
don't
long hair was
I
like
can't get used to
cursed.
it. Yeah.
was so
They-
cursed.
I saw
They-
concept art of long hair Sabine like in the Rebels art style. It just looks
Oh,
so
God.
off.
No,
I was
and-
like, no way.
No.
no, I was so mad when they dropped the first look at Ahsoka and there was long hair.
Yeah.
Sabine. It's like, what do you? That's not her.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah.
She didn't look like her. Now that she has short hair, she actually looks like her to me.
Yeah.
But I looked at even looking at her face with the long hair, I was like, that's not Sabine.
What did you guys think about the whole master apprentice thing between Ahsoka and Sabine? Because I was really thrown off.
It's
I wasn't expecting that personally.
I wasn't either.
it's weird. It's
Yeah.
it's something that I think people are taking out of context from the trailer because like
Uh-huh.
there's people saying Sabine is force sensitive because of this. And like me and Liam were just talking about this like right before we got on the podcast.
Yeah.
I really hope they don't go that route of Sabine being force
Yeah.
sensitive, right? Like
I think there was
Her-
that
yeah.
one click where she kind of tries to use the force push and she's like, you have no power. And I was like,
yeah.
I hope so. I really hope so. I mean,
That would be such a
I
cool arc
kinda-
for Sabine, right? Just to be like,
yeah,
I can still train as a Jedi, I still accept this other culture without being force sensitive, right?
exactly.
And
Exactly. Go for it.
I mean, I also saw that like she was just saying it like jokingly because I feel like they would put a line like that to make viewers just talk.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm seeing this more as like a way to establish a relationship between Ahsoka and Sabine more than an actual like a Jedi master relationship, but it's more like it's mimicking that. where
That's
she's
a good
just an
that's a good
apprentice.
take because like in the epilogue of Rebels, like they are the ones who team up and are like, we're gonna go get Ezra. And it's
Yeah.
like, okay, well, they barely interacted in the show, so how's that
Yeah,
gonna
that's what's
Exactly,
throwing me off. Because
exactly.
like the Rebels epilogue is definitely not going to be the starting point of Ahsoka. I feel like it's going to be almost like a midpoint, right? Because
Yeah,
there's like a 10 to 15 year gap between when Ahsoka disappears in Rebel season 2 and like the start of the Ahsoka series, right? And like I saw a theory online that like, what if in that time frame Ahsoka and Sabine did attempt a search for Ezra that failed? What if they already spent time together, but it led to nothing, right? So like you have, years of history between them, but like we've never seen that. Like it wasn't in Rebels, it wasn't in anything else, right? So there's such a big gap in time in Ahsoka's history that we know nothing about. And I feel like the show has to explain that, right? It's not just gonna be like we start at the Rebels epilogue and just go forward.
Yeah, that's what it felt like to me. The trailer felt like that. Like it was representing like some sort of distance between Ahsoka and Sabine, and now this is like a reunion of sorts. Yeah,
Yeah, and also those two, what Balin and what's the other one's name?
I think Shin, right?
Yeah,
Yeah,
those two,
they're interesting.
really interesting.
Yeah,
Yeah, especially when like he name dropped Anakin.
Right.
yeah.
I
Anakin
can-
spoke so highly of you.
yeah,
Yeah,
that
I
was
so I was like, oh, interesting.
yeah, I this is far out, but I feel like we're gonna get it. We're gonna get a flashback, probably like Clone Wars era, young Balin probably interacting with Anakin because Hayden is gonna be in the show. That was confirmed a little while ago, right? So
right.
that could be cool.
Yeah. And
Looking forward to it. Yeah.
I think like I'm obviously super, super excited for it, but I'm just scared of what's gonna happen to Thrawn.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's I think the elephant in the room.
Especially after the Mandalorian, when like Moff Gideon and like Hux's dad was like, we're all awaiting Thrawn. What is he doing? Like fucking off in like the unknown regions, like, you know?
Yeah.
Like, yeah, he's like trying to save his like people, you
Yeah.
know? And like
Yeah,
he stopped, I'm sure he stopped caring about the Empire like
That's
while ago,
yeah, that's just
I
it
feel
because
like.
that's what's gonna make her like it's what's gonna make or break the show to an extent. I already feel like because like it's either A, you respect who Thrawn is in the books, who yeah, he does
And
not
in
care about the
books.
Empire. They're a means to an end, right?
Yeah.
And in Rebels, like, yeah, he's portrayed as a villain. He's the villain of the show. He's portrayed to be loyal to the Empire. That's not who he is. And like the way Filoni handles that is, I think, like the trickiest part of the show, and also like what's gonna make or break it.
And I feel like Filoni has a track record of like doing his own thing.
Yeah, that's the other thing.
Like Filoni, if you like do one thing that wasn't your like own original idea, please like keep Thrawn true to the canon novels. Like,
Yeah.
because when I heard Heir to the Empire,
Yeah,
it-
like I was
That's
like,
what threw me off. He's not the heir to the Empire.
I
And
don't know,
What are you talking
the pit
about?
is.
Legends, yeah, but like
Yeah, I mean, I was like, what the hell are you talking about?
Yeah.
Like, no, he's not.
I really hope that that whole council in the Mandalorian just thinks that they're gonna find him, bring him back, and he'll still be loyal. But they're
Yeah,
gonna find
yeah.
him, and he's gonna be like best friends with Ezra, and he's like not gonna care about the Empire
Yeah.
anymore.
No, I hope that like they're just a bunch of like Thrawn fanboys because like they just heard so much about him when like
Exactly.
they were in the Navy, and then like I think it would be cool if we got to see Scylla like in
Mhm.
like it'd be interesting to see how they do that,
Mhm.
like a planet in the unknown regions.
yeah.
But I think it'd be cool if Thrawn and Ezra just chilling, and
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
you know.
I think we have to
Also-
set an expectation that like Thrawn probably is going to be the antagonist. Like,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
he's not going to be loyal to the Empire, but like he will still probably oppose whatever Ahsoka's being or trying to do, right?
Yeah.
But like,
I mean,
yeah.
I expect that, and I don't mind that. Just
Mhm.
I just don't want them to go the route of him like believing in the Empire because he doesn't.
yeah.
Also, I hope Eli shows up. He probably won't, but like,
He
How many
probably won't
episodes
either,
is
but,
this
like,
show? Like, there's a lot of stuff they got
I
to
feel
throw
like it's
in.
8.
8 doesn't feel like enough. I don't know. Has to be like Andor level, like 12
Have
episodes.
they?
Yeah.
Have they? Oh yeah, have they confirmed the number of episodes yet? No.
I don't think
I'm looking it
so.
up right now. Consists of 8 episodes.
Oh, it is 8. Okay.
Yeah.
Ooh.
They better be like hour-long episodes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
like if Eli shows up, I will probably just like pass out.
Yeah.
Well, the episode.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I do think that it's cool that like they have Mon Mothma and stuff too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because like it is kind of her fault that the first
Yeah.
one.
Honestly.
I hate to
I
say
think
it, but yeah.
that's been like well established at this point.
Yeah. It'll be
Yeah.
interesting to see how her portrayal in Ahsoka is different from how she is in Andor. Because Ahsoka and Andor are like complete opposite shows entirely, right?
Yeah.
So it'll be interesting because she's the one link between them. So we'll see.
Awesome.
Let's move on
Okay.
before talking about
Yep,
that.
yep.
Yeah.
Just gonna do that. So today's episode, we're kind of gonna be focusing on the Jedi Survivor game. So first, before we kind of go into the new game, let's go back and recap any thoughts we might have on Fallen Order. What's our history with it? What do we think about it? Brian, you want to start us off? Have you played the game?
Yeah, I played
Okay.
Fallen Order when it came out on my Xbox. I beat it. Then I got it again on my PC. I beat it again on my PC. I really liked it number one, as a game. Like, my favorite game is Sekiro. I don't know if you guys have played or heard of it.
Yeah,
but like,
I think I've heard of it. Yeah.
like
Yeah, but
it's a FromSoft game, and like, have you played it, Karan?
I have not. But I keep watching Sakura clips, so
Yeah,
I've seen
like-
enough gameplay. Yeah,
Like, it is extremely hard. Like, it's super
Yeah.
hard. Like, I'm not like the best at it, but like I've played through that game like I think like a total of like 8 times
wow.
in total.
8?
So-
Okay.
So like, but like, I mean, like, I feel like a FromSoft game is meant to be played like over and over again.
Mhm.
So like, other people played it like 20 times, I'm sure. But like, that game's gameplay, I feel like, made a new path for Souls-like games, and Fallen Order being a Souls-like Star Wars game, I was like, okay, yes, this is what I wanted. Because I played some of the old Star Wars games, like what is it? Like, I played KOTOR. I didn't like the gameplay that much. I think the story was really cool, but gameplay was kind of boring. I'm not a big like RPG fan, like classic RPG fan.
Yeah.
And
Right.
I played Jedi Academy, and I also didn't like the gameplay in that either, which I know is like a controversial opinion, because people are always like, Jedi Academy has like
Raving
the
about
best,
it, yeah.
best saber combat, and I'm like, no, like I don't like it.
I've logged 30 minutes on that game because I
Yeah,
can't handle the old ass graphics. Like I just like
yeah,
I
like
know
also the
it's
graphics,
old, it's an
yeah.
old game. I should expect that, but like after watching Jedi Order or Jedi Fallen Order,
Yeah.
trying to go back and play the old games, I'm
Yeah.
like, it's like shit. I'm sorry.
Yeah. So
I
as
don't
a
know if you
game, I
guys-
love Fallen
yeah.
Order.
Got it. What about plot?
Plot, I also loved it.
Okay.
I didn't
awesome.
expect, like, I don't think I had any expectations really.
Uh-huh.
I knew Cameron Monaghan, who plays Cal, because I watched Gotham. I didn't watch
Oh,
Shameless.
yeah. Uh-huh.
Most people know him from Shameless, but I watched Gotham, and I really liked his Jerome Jeremiah thing in Gotham. So I was like, oh, whoa, he's in Star Wars now. I want to play. But yeah, like, I think the story is really good. Like, Trilla, I think, was a really good antagonist. Their use of like callbacks, especially, and like, what's so nice is they didn't rely on like Easter eggs or like cameos or like reveals. Like, I feel like Vader at the end of that game is like perfect.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
such a
Yep.
perfect use of Vader.
Yep.
And I think Vader's use in like the sequel too is like also perfect. But I guess we'll talk about that like when we get to Survivor. But yeah, I really love Fallen Order. Although like there were some gameplay things that could be improved, and like bugs. A lot of bugs on PC.
Xbox everywhere. It was
Yeah,
not,
but
I pre-ordered it. It was not good on the first day.
yeah, but I gave Fallen Order a pass because it was like Respawn's first thing, and like I was like, okay, like I've been starved for like a good Star Wars game for so long, so I'm not gonna care. But it's a little different with Survivor.
Yeah, pretty much same.
Awesome.
I went through Fallen Order when it came out. So was it like 2019, 2020, like around that time?
2019.
Right?
Yeah,
2019, yeah. And yeah, again, like I had no expectations going in. I did not know what to expect from this story. And like pretty much the opening like really hooked me in because it was on Braca, right? Like the whole like
Yeah.
wreck of destroyers.
Mine, yeah,
like that. Yeah, that whole opening sequence like really hooked me in. And I loved the game. I thought the characters were built up super, super well. Considering the whole cast was new characters, right? There were no existing characters really brought in. Like Saw Gerrera had an appearance, but that was just like I think like 20 minutes. It wasn't even that long, right? Like he was in there for like a pretty quick amount of time. And then Vader, obviously. But even then, the characters were built up like super, super well. Yeah, not much else to really say. I loved it going in with no expectations. So
I watched a playthrough of it recently, like a couple months ago. I also like the only things I knew about the game going into it was that Vader shows up and you fight him, and there's an Order 66 scene. I didn't know like what goes on in that Order 66 scene going into it, so it still hit really hard. It's actually my least favorite, but it's like my favorite because it's so heart-wrenching, but it's also my least favorite because of that. But
that Order 66 sequence was like, I also got it spoiled for me before I played the game, like before I got to that point. Or it's like I knew that there was an Order 66 scene, so I knew obviously when it was gonna be, because like Cal's like a little boy and he's running around like he's like Naruto running down the hallways of like
Yeah.
the Star Destroyer. But like you can go up to the clones, like talk to them, you know,
Yep.
because
Yeah,
it's a
that's
game.
what hit different.
And like I don't know if that was in like your video, Liam, but
no,
like,
it was. He
right?
walks up to
Yeah.
a trooper and talks to him, and they fist bump. And
He like high
Yeah.
fives a clone or something. Yeah, I
Yeah.
was like, oh
And-
god.
And like literally
like,
5 minutes later.
yeah, and then
Yeah.
it's like and it's like you also like basically just like know what's gonna happen, you know, and like you see that and it's like it was
It's
It's really
heart-wrenching.
so
It's
good.
really heart-wrenching. Yeah.
and like Cal
100%.
losing his lightsaber, and then T'Pol gifting him his lightsaber as he dies.
yeah.
That was
In the escape
insane.
pod.
Oof. Yeah.
That shit hurted.
And I think like there's like flashback fights, or not flashback, like force vision fights.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All
All
over-
of his,
over-
I think the use of flashbacks to kind of go through the training sequences, how he's kind of finding his reconnection to the force, that was beautiful. I think that was a very well used aspect of the storytelling.
That was a
Yeah.
really cool way to introduce new abilities into the gameplay. Also.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Exactly.
which I
Um,
don't think worked as well in Survivor, but
No, it
also
didn't.
that's something
I agree.
Survivor.
But we'll get to that. We'll get to that. Yeah, I mean, same. Fallen Order was actually the first game I bought on my new Xbox. And I loved it. I loved playing with the lightsaber. It was so much fun.
Yeah. And like just even like
I
lore wise, there's like so much new stuff introduced. Like you had the
Yep.
Zepho, which were like a whole new species
Yep.
and like a whole new culture, right? You
Yeah.
had like new
Yep.
crime factions. You had like the Haxian Brood introduced and that whole like arena sort of setup, right? You had the
Yes.
lore on Dathomir with Merrin and like pretty much
The
what
Night
else is
Sisters,
survivors
all
of
of them.
Dathomir. Yeah. Like there was just so much new lore introduced. It was just super cool to see.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I loved the Zepho lore. That was amazing. It reminded me a lot of the Sheikah in Legend of Zelda. So that was cool.
Yeah.
Like I just love the idea of like an ancient force sensitive culture that doesn't exist anymore, that now they're trying to like figure out that history. That was a really cool plot line and I loved it.
I love the whole, because essentially you're just looking for the holocron throughout the entire game. I
Yeah.
love that was a central plot and how it was guided by just this antagonist, which was Chilla, which was again, as Brian said, fantastic villain, fantastic antagonist. So yeah.
And
Anything else that
while watching that plot line happen where they're looking through the holocron, I was thinking like, well, no matter who knows where the kids are, like they're in danger. Like obviously the Empire shouldn't get that list, but also like they talked about it in the game. Like, should we look at this list and go find all these kids, or should we just destroy it so no one gets it? And I was thinking that before they even had that conversation, and then they had it. I was like, thank God they addressed that, because I couldn't like figure out in my mind if that would be something that they actually like would put in the game, like put that conversation in the plot. And they did, and it was very refreshing to see. And then they destroyed the holocron, which was
Yeah.
the right decision.
okay.
Yeah, I think my last thing I want to say about Fallen Order is the lack of lightsaber bosses.
You're
From
right.
from like a gameplay perspective. Like I remember fighting like the Ninth Sister, that I think Terran Malicos is my favorite boss fight.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was cool.
Agreed.
But he was like the other big lightsaber villain that wasn't like Trilla or like the Ninth Sister.
Trilla. Yep.
So
Well, I will say early on, Jedi Survivor kind of made up for that in
yeah.
some way. So let's move on to talk about that. So quick recap of the plot of Survivor. It happens 5 years after the plot of Fallen Order. And the opening scene is Cal being captured and taken to Coruscant to a senator. and that kind of springs off the entire plot of him going and finding, going to the crash landing into Kobo. Sorry, yeah, it was Kobo.
Yeah.
And then finding Greece to repair his ship, and that leading to another adventure where he has to find the key to a secret place called Talon. So, any particular plot points that you guys want to discuss?
You guys do not understand how much it hurt to see Cal walk into the Mantis the first time he did in that cutscene, and Grease wasn't in the pilot seat.
Yeah,
wasn't.
just
Like
seeing the empty
Grease is
ship.
my favorite
and
character, in
then-
and I totally expect like I wasn't seeing any of the other characters. I was like, okay, so they're on the Mantis. He walks into the Mantis. Seer and Merrin aren't there. I'm like, okay, well, Grease would never leave the Mantis, right? He's gonna be in the pilot seat. No, he wasn't.
Yeah, there was like a flashback too, right? Like he was like, I remember Cal like pulling up to like that table and just like sitting down, and there was like some kind of flashbacks, like when all of them were like just happy on the Mantis,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And just
Yeah,
cut back, and I was
yeah.
like, damn.
And they don't actually, spoiler, they don't actually explain what actually happened for the group to fall apart. I know that Liam, you've read
Yep.
the book in between. Do you want to
Battle
talk about that a
Scars.
little bit? Battle Scars, yeah, you want to talk about that?
Yeah, battle. Okay, Brian knows this. I was about halfway through the book when I told Brian I don't really like it that much. That opinion has changed. The last 50 or so pages of the book really saved it for me. It's like starting to read it, it's really not great. Like I really didn't feel like this was a necessary like piece of the story to like write an entire novel for. I still think that the novel could have easily been cut down to like 200 pages. It's 270 pages. Like it was very wordy. There's a lot of like things that were over explained that didn't really need to be. Um, I described it as like probably like a really decent AO3 fan fiction that I would bookmark, but I would not pay the $25 I paid for the novel from Barnes and Noble. So,
Mhm.
but in those last 50 pages, there's just a lot of really good character development. There's a really good conversation between Seer and Cal that gives a lot of really good insight into their relationship as Master and Padawan. There is the scene where Grease loses his arm. He has a prosthetic arm in Survivor, and the book explains exactly what happens. Should I just this is a spoiler.
Yeah, just go for it.
Go for it, yeah.
He loses his arm to the fifth brother, saving Seer. The fifth brother was about to kill Seer. Grease runs in and like the fifth brother is surprised by this, like, what is this little creature doing in front of me, and like misses and just gets Grease's arm, and they both survive and everything's fine. Well, not everything's fine, but like they get out. But so they don't explain in the game why the crew isn't together. But
Yep.
if you read the book, like it's also not like they don't split up at the end of the book. Like the book has a happy ending. They're all still together at the end of the book. But through the conversations that like some like through the Seer and Cal conversation, you kind of get insight as to why
Yeah.
Seer aren't together anymore. They're like, it makes sense why Grease isn't on the Mantis anymore. Doesn't really make sense why Merrin isn't there. Like you can like infer why she isn't. And
Yeah, I think the game,
the
yeah, I
game-
think the game really hinted at it. It didn't clearly say anything. It was just like Cal was trying to save the world, being a hero all the time, and the rest just wanted to do it at not the same heroic level that Cal was trying to show.
yeah, the
That's
conversation Cal-
kind of what.
was like about how they don't actually want the same thing. Like Cal, like it's in like a lot of sorry, tripping over my words. In Cal's perspective of the conversation, he's thinking like he genuinely thought that he and Seer wanted exactly the same thing and wanted to do it the same exact way. And then they realize, no, Cal wants to like fight the Empire head on and take them down. And Seer just wants to restore, not even like restore the entire order. She just wants to find the Jedi history and preserve it for the next generation. And Cal is thinking, well, that's all well and good, but how the fuck are we going to do that if the Empire still exists? So it's
Yeah.
a whole like conflict of interest thing. And then also there's a conversation between the entire group and also some characters that are like book only, where they have this whole argument, and that whole argument is like that's the crux of like where you really find out like why they kind of split up.
Yeah, there's
Right.
sort of
And
hints at it in one scene in the game that I want to talk about. I think it's when Cal first goes to Kobo. He talks to Grease in the cantina, right? And then Grease is like, "Oh, I have this like whole room for you. You can like stay here if you want, right?" And then they
yeah,
talk about like basically like I think Grease is the one who mainly initiates it about like, why don't you stop fighting, Cal? Because like Cal
Yeah.
does
Yep.
that mission in the opening on Coruscant, and he's like, that was kind of pointless, right? Because like his whole team, basically, except for Bo, died
died. Yeah,
during that
except
mission,
both died.
right?
Yeah.
And he was like, we just got like one piece of intel, like it's not gonna make a difference. And then Grease follows it up with like, do you see a life for yourself outside of this war? Like you survived the purge, sure, but that doesn't mean you have to keep being just a weapon, because to Cal, all he sees is war, right? Like he grew up during Clone Wars, right? So like to him,
Yes.
being a Jedi equals being a soldier.
Yeah.
So, but to Seer and to Cordova as well, being a Jedi is not just being a soldier, right? Like they see a greater purpose in just preserving the history, like you said, Liam.
Yep.
So that part of it was super compelling, and I think that's why Cal's journey was like really interesting to me, because like he can't see a life for himself outside of fighting a war, but like there is more than one way to fight the Empire, right?
Yeah.
And, like
Right.
preserving history is another way. Yeah.
I think the other thing, the common theme that I noted was the fear of the Empire and how both I think Cal is still on his way to get, not be fearful of the Empire. But spoiler alert, the fight scene between Seer and Darth Vader, there's this really powerful dialogue where Seer just goes, I've let go of my fear, and as she goes against Darth Vader. I think
Yeah.
that becomes a really powerful theme to discuss because like essentially it's showing how both of them have their own path, but they're kind of rooted in some similarities, which I really, really loved.
Yeah, fear is just a
Yeah.
central theme of the story. Like,
Yep.
how far will your fear drive you? Like to Cal, he's scared of losing. He's scared of the sacrifice of his master meaning nothing. He's scared of his friends getting hurt. So to him, he's just gonna keep fighting. And then I want to touch on Bode and Dagon as well, because
Mhm.
the fear also motivates them. For Bode, it's
Yep.
just fear of losing his kid, right? For Dagon, it's just fear of all his work being for nothing, because he's the one who did the whole quest to find Santalor. And then after it's attacked, the Jedi are like, sorry, you gotta leave. But like it's just his fear of like, this is his discovery, this is something he did meaning nothing. So like the three of them had like such a good, like thematic
Parallel
like
structure,
just a parallel,
Yeah.
of like how far will your fear take you?
yeah, 100%.
And
The Darth Vader fight.
I think to talk about the Seared Vader fight, if I'm gonna be 100% honest, I thought the Vader fight was extremely easy, and I was playing on Grandmaster. I thought it was really easy.
Yeah.
So like I was like, okay, like this is really easy. Like I'm kicking his ass. So then then that's why later when Seer jumps in for that final stab, I was like, oh shit, like she's gonna stab him.
Yeah.
Like I was so, I mean, like obviously like I knew Vader couldn't die, but like I was like, oh my god, like Seer's actually gonna win and like get out of this. And then so she like goes in, she's like flying in for that stab, and then
Misses.
She
no,
misses.
no,
Yeah.
like the gasp that I like let out, and like it was like 2 a.m. in
Gasp
my
like that.
dorm on campus, and like I was playing, like not studying for OChem, and like I was actually just like shocked, like
Yeah.
100%.
and like my mouth was just open.
Vader's
yeah.
appearance in and of itself like genuinely
Yeah.
surprised me, because like
Yeah,
last time it was
yeah.
like
Me
they
too.
were kind of just building to it, right? In
Yeah.
fact,
Yep.
it was like, okay, yeah, someone big is gonna show up, and then it was still a surprise, but this time it was like the middle of the story. Like,
Yeah,
with
it's like
Jedha,
Yep.
I was like, there's no way he's here. Like that was
Yeah,
insane.
well,
Yep.
and then like also because like the fact that like Survivor takes place during Kenobi, or like around the same time as Kenobi,
Around
I
the
was like,
same time, yeah.
oh, like Vader can't show up because he's busy fighting Obi-Wan somewhere. But then he shows up, and then
Yeah. You know what? Just the scene of Vader walking away hobbling was good enough closure for me for Seer's
my God.
fight. Like just the fact that she was
Yeah.
able to do that much.
Yeah.
That visual to me was insane, because Seer like just like very casually steps backwards as if she's not hurt, just off of the lightsaber, and fully stands there, like not falling over, as Vader is hobbling away after she kicked his ass. and then she dies when Cal shows up because like, oh yep, her fight is over. All right. But like it was just so powerful that she was like standing there looking like she was still
Yep.
fine. Was like struggling.
Yeah.
Good suit.
Yeah, good soup.
Yeah, and I think just like what you said, Karan, about like fear, about Seer letting go of her fear. That's why she was able to like beat him so much. Because I think apparently can also bring it to Kenobi too. You know,
It's
like I
also
feel
a
like
parallel to Rebels,
Mhm.
right? Because when
Yes.
Kanan's fighting the Grand Inquisitor, and
yeah,
he's all like, "I've let go of my fear," and then he defeats him, right? So
yeah.
Yeah,
And I think that's
I
just
think,
a very
yeah.
Jedi thing.
Agreed, 100%. I think it's that entire period is the rebellion finding ways to let go of their fear to stand up to this empire that usually seems insurmountable, but now, if you believe, yeah, it's beautiful. I love that scene. I love the Darth Vader fight. I was so sad to see Seer die, but honestly,
I
I
knew in
think
the
it was.
back of my mind
Exactly,
and I was,
exactly. I
I'm
kind of
not gonna
expected.
I'm not gonna think about that. And then it happened. I was like, okay. And I
Yeah.
was watching this in a Starbucks. I was in public, just like trying not to just
No,
break down crying at this little table that I was at.
Yeah. And then also
Yeah.
I think what you guys thought, because when like I first played through it, I thought that Seer died when Cal got there. But then after seeing other people post about it, I don't think that's what happened. So it's like what I think, or at least after reading other people's thoughts, is like that whole gameplay part when we play as Seer is Cal like reliving her memory through his
oh, that's
psychometry,
really interesting.
which is
Psychometry.
yeah, which is especially why at the end when Seer's dying, it like the camera spins and then like it's like gray,
Oh,
that like gray blue
shoot.
Oh my
that like
god.
we see in like Force visions, and that's why
Oh,
because
I did
That's
not
insane.
notice
Wow.
that.
yeah,
That
because
is
That really
that's
fucking hurts.
crazy.
yeah, because I'm pretty sure Cal's knocked out during that whole part after he fell from that tower.
Yeah, because what I thought happened was he gets knocked out and then we switch POVs to Seer just so we
Yeah,
can-
yeah, same.
And then he shows up because like I imagine he wakes up a little bit later and then like
Yeah,
is like, oh no, I gotta go get Seer because she's probably in trouble, and then he gets there right as she dies. But I like the psychometry thing a lot
no,
better.
yeah, like the
That's-
psychometry
After
really
she dies.
hits.
Yeah,
like
that's insane.
yeah,
That adds so much more depth to that scene.
Yeah.
Now. I'm gonna
Yeah.
need a second on that one. Okay. We're gonna end up talking about the characters a little later, but let's move on to gameplay mechanics because I have some thoughts about this. So, firstly, about the stances. Our old battle master hated that they used the word stances because not really stances are different lightsaber forms. Well, the different lightsaber types. But what lightsaber stances did you guys end up using?
I went with dual wielding crossguard, like basically the whole
Okay.
time through. But
Okay.
crossguard was my favorite. I basically used crossguard the entire time.
Ooh, I disagree on the crossguard, but okay, we'll come back to that. I was on dual wield and double bladed for almost the entire game. I think there were some fight scenes that I switched to a single blade, but almost never to the blaster stance. That felt like a cheat to me. I
Yeah,
still think that it was a cheat.
I mean, crossguard was cheap. Like, I beat the final boss with crossguard, and I like
No
kind
way.
of cheesed him, so I felt kind of bad.
Uh-huh.
But I was getting pissed, so it was
That's
okay.
bad.
One thing
That's
I'm
fair.
sort of curious about just for gameplay in general was like, again, I just watched it, so I don't know exactly how this was, but like there was a point I think near the end where like it forced you to use the dark side, right?
Yeah,
And then like near the end
Yes.
as well, you could choose light or dark. And like
Yes.
I think I watched Explain's video on this where he was like, if you use the dark side, it's like ridiculously easy to beat Bode at like the very end. So like, what are your thoughts on that whole mechanic?
I think at the
Embracing the
end,
dark side? Okay.
didn't you
yeah.
have to at the end?
So that's the
Yeah,
thing.
like,
I've
it
been
just
hearing
told you
some
embrace
people.
the dark side and you had to do it.
Yeah.
That was in the
Apparently-
facility, right? Because like
No.
there was the-
There was
No.
there was a time when like Bode is like choking is like force choking you, and then like the
Yeah.
screen
This is
goes
on
black.
analog.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
you're right. Okay, yeah.
But apparently, I've been hearing this from multiple people. Some people got that embrace the dark side thing, and some people didn't. Like I played through it twice, and the first time I got the embrace the dark side, but the second time I didn't get it.
Oh,
Oh,
different endings?
Wait.
It's not different endings.
But not a
but
different ending, but like a different
That is
like
really
it's different.
interesting.
Yeah.
If that's
Like,
intentional, that is interesting.
Yeah. So
because
I
in the
think
playthrough I watched, it got the embrace the dark
Embrace
side.
the Dark Side.
I saw that and I was thinking, well, if I was playing this, I would probably pause the game and be like, can I get another option, please? Because I don't want to do that.
Yeah.
I was dying so much in that last fight that I decided to just go for it and not risk not losing
That's
it
fair.
completely.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I tried. Well, I mean, actually, that's a lie. I used it a lot because it was just fun.
It
Like,
was 100%.
like it
I
was just
loved
really
it.
fun to use.
I
Like,
loved it.
yeah,
Yeah.
I just thought it was cool.
Okay. The other gameplay mechanic that I had a gripe with was okay, in Fallen Order, if you remember, you could hold down a melee attack and then it would transit, like if you hold it down, it would go from a single blade to a double blade. Like there would be transitions between
Yeah, like the
yeah. There would be transitions between the two, like the single blade to the double blade.
yeah.
This game didn't have that, and I kind of hated it because there was a lag between switching between, like if you're switching from one form to another. And I was kind of expecting that a lot, and I really liked that mechanic in the first game.
I also it took some getting used to for me, and that's why I didn't switch between two forms a lot within a fight, though I tried to like later in the game.
Mhm.
But I didn't see it as too much of an issue.
Okay.
My bigger issue is not being able to use all 5 forms at
Ooh.
once.
Yep.
I think
That
that
would
would
have
have
been
been
awesome.
really
That
cool, but
would've been
also
really
it
nice.
makes sense from like the gameplay perspective, because like that's just like broken, like kind of dumb from like a game
Yeah.
perspective. Like I wouldn't have enjoyed it as a game if it was like
Exactly.
that.
That's
Um,
why I think my logic became for my two stances to be one should be for crowd control and one should be like one-on-one combat. Because
yeah, that was my thought, but
nothing does better against like a bunch of blaster bolts than like a double bladed, but like the double bladed on a single one-on-one fight didn't do as well in my opinion.
yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
I just thought the crossguard felt the best. Like it just
Really?
felt
Okay.
like weighty, and like every swing had weight behind it,
Right.
which is really nice. Like I think, and like being committed and like committing to the attack, I think that was something I was more used to after playing Elden Ring, especially
Right.
because like I'm a big fan of just like Souls likes in general. So
Mhm.
I think the crossguard really emphasized that. And like it dealt a bunch of damage, and like the
Right.
hit stun on his heavy attack. And like that's how I
Yeah.
cheese mode in the end. It was like his last phase, and like I had maybe like and like he would one-shot me with his damage anyways.
100%. 100%.
So
Yeah.
like I had maybe like a little bit of health left, and he also had a little bit of health left. And I was like, okay, I can either do this like in a way that would make me feel good, or I can just beat him. And again, it was like 3 a.m. on like a school day. So I just like kept on pressing like Y, and then like he kept on
Right.
getting staggered, and I thought it was really funny. Well, okay, so like there was one time where like I did that, and like he kept on getting staggered. I was like, oh, like I can do this, like okay. But then I died, and I got really mad. And
No.
I was like, okay, next time I'm gonna try and beat him like the right way. But
Right.
then I kept dying again, so I was like, okay, you know what, whatever. Like I'm just gonna beat him. It is okay. I can replay the game.
That's fair enough. I think my problem with the crossguard was that as it came, like when you first got it without any of the upgrades, I did not like it. But after you added some of those, it became really nice. But still not my favorite. My favorite was still dual wield because I feel like the speed really helped me because I am not. This would be my second. Like after Fallout, Order, I haven't played any game like this, so I'm not used to like the timing perfectly yet. So
Oh yeah.
this kind of it was a little more forgiving in that sense, and I really just enjoyed. I think my favorite mechanic was like the dual throw where you throw both the
Yeah,
lightsabers, and it just looked really cool. Yeah.
Yeah, dual wield was also really fun. Like I basically only used dual wield after I got it, and like before I got crossguard, I would only use dual wield.
Right.
So
Yeah, fair enough.
yeah, but other gameplay stuff that I really loved was all the new mobility options.
Yes.
fast
Yes.
travel, and not having to unlock all your abilities again.
Again, 100%.
Because like I played like I've played other Castlevanias or Metroidvanias before, kind of, but from what I saw online is that in like the Metroid games, in every sequel, you would have to start over and like get abilities again. So
Mhm.
I'm really happy that they didn't do that. But talking about the story thing that you did from earlier about unlocking new abilities
Mhm.
wasn't as satisfying because it was just like a little like 10-second cutscene.
Yep. Yep. Yeah. The other thing, I really miss Force Flow. I know that you could do it with the power up thing, but I just missed
Oh
being
yeah,
able to
being able
like
to slow people.
stop, just slow people. That was a really cool mechanic that I wish they had kept, but also I loved like Force Lift and just the Force Slam down. That
Yeah,
was really cool too, but I really just missed Force Flow a lot. Yeah.
yeah. And then
I liked Force Slow because of like the plot element of it, because in Order 66, like he uses
yeah, when he like
Yeah,
slow-
Force Slow was cool during that part. I remember.
Yeah.
I just like him using it in Fallen Order after the fact. It was just like, oh,
he's just
like,
doing it.
he thinks of that as like the way to protect himself because that's what he did during Order 66, and it wasn't present in Survivor, which like I guess you could consider like character development, but I was like, but you know, it's like a habit that's ingrained into his mind. Like, why would he give that up?
Yeah. I mean, technically, both like embracing the darkness was in a way Force Slow because he was just slowing down his
Yeah.
enemies and then running around. But I just wish it was just like as it was in Fallen Order because I
Yeah.
don't think that needed to change necessarily, in my opinion. Yeah.
I'd agree to a certain extent, but I think just to keep things fresh between games.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was
That 100%.
yeah.
Yeah. I get it, but I miss it.
But
Okay. Let's probably move on and let's give our thoughts about each of the characters. We've talked a
Talk
little
about
bit
Bode
about
first.
Gal. Yes.
Yeah, let's talk about
yes.
Bode.
I
Talk
was
about
just
Bode.
gonna
Bode
say
is my
that.
man.
Yeah.
Did you guys see the twist coming? I'm
No.
curious.
No.
Yes and no.
Yes and no.
Yes
Okay,
and no.
Liam, go
So
for it.
as soon as Bode showed up, I was like, okay, new character, and he's like consistently in the game. It's not like what's her name who died at the beginning of the game. Like he was consistently there, and I'm thinking, okay, there's no way like something crazy doesn't happen with this guy. And the game kept going where nothing crazy was happening. He was an ally throughout the entire thing, and it got to the part where like they had that heart to heart on the cliff or something, and it ended with him saying like, I'm gonna go record a bedtime story for my daughter. And I was like, oh, that's so cute. And that felt like the end of the game to me. But I checked how much time was left in the video I was watching, and there was an hour and a half left. I was like, okay, something's gonna happen. Either he's gonna die tragically or he's gonna betray Cal. And he fucking betrayed Cal. And I was like, I wish I could say like I saw it coming, because I kind of did, but also like I kind of pushed it to the back of my mind. Like there's no way. Like he's a good guy. What I did not see coming was him being a Jedi.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay.
I was like, he's gonna
That
betray Cal, but like
was
being a
crazy.
Jedi?
Yeah. Like
Yeah.
I felt like he was going to die because like there was a bit in the facility with Cal fighting Dagon for the last time, right? And Bode was there too. I thought like they had a bit of a talk like about Merrin and stuff like right before. So I was like, okay,
Yeah.
he's just gonna pass on some advice and then he's probably gonna die. That was my thought initially. But he survived and then he kept going. I was like, he's been pretty one note for the story up to that point. Like, yeah, he said he has a daughter and stuff. So I was like, okay, that's your motivation for the fight, right? But like after the talk on the cliff, I was like, he's gonna do something because like he hadn't done anything really narrative wise up to that point. Like he was just kind of there, right? And I was like, okay, there's got to be more to him. But like him being a Jedi was really cool because like
Did not see that
he didn't
coming
seem
though.
like a
Yeah.
Jedi just the way he
Oh,
acted,
yeah.
right? It
Yeah.
honestly felt like Kanan and Rebels, like at least like early on when you meet him, you know, like he doesn't act like a Jedi. He acts just like a standard gunslinger sort of dude, right?
Yeah.
Which is how Bode was acting. So like him being a Jedi was like the cooler, or at least the twist that landed better for me than like him betraying them. But regardless,
Yeah.
both aspects of that twist were really cool.
That was good storytelling, in my opinion. They did a good job with that.
Yeah.
And just in general, Bode, like the father motivation is always a very interesting story plot to use. I think they did a decent job, especially towards the end, where in that last fight, he's kind of pushing Kata away and like force pushing her and deliberately being the one to hurt her, even though like there was this whole thing about him being this protective father who doesn't want to do anything to his daughter. And that twist really got to me. Like, I did not, I'll be honest, I did not see the plot twist coming, especially not the Jedi part. But that part where he was just kind of pushing Kata away broke me.
Yeah, the whole
Yeah.
father motivation thing for me was like he said, "Oh, I have a daughter. That's the reason I'm doing all this." So I was like, okay, so like run of the mill motivation, like it's fine,
Yeah.
like I like it,
Yeah.
but I was like, this is a little bit cliche. And then like towards the end there, when he starts like hurting Kata, it I really liked that part because it was him like he thinks that he's doing everything for Kata, but he doesn't realize he's actually doing everything for himself, and his obsession with protecting her is blinding him to to what he's actually doing to her, which
Yeah.
that was the interesting part of like the father motivation. So that
Agreed.
was good, and that saved it for me at the end.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
Bode as an operative for the ISB was really cool because
Oh, yeah, I
you know,
forgot
he
about
was
that. Yeah.
he was working for that ISB guy just to be like, don't tell Vader about my daughter and stuff, just
Yeah.
to, keep her under wraps, so to say, right? And like that's such a cool element. Like the ISB doing things like this, separate from the Inquisitors using force sensitive operatives. I mean, there might be more. We don't know. He's the first one we've seen the
Yeah.
ISB use like this, right? But like that's such a cool concept to me, I think. Just like an independent force user who works for the Empire just for this deal that they've struck, right?
And also how
Right.
the Empire's whole deal is to find the Jedi and kill them. And here's the ISB protecting a known Jedi, like knowing that he hasn't like exactly renounced the Jedi, like he still is one. And they're like, we'll protect you as long as you do shit for us instead of just straight up
Yep.
killing them, which they do with everything else, which I like. ISB is basically like their version of the CIA, right? I'm like, this is very CIA
Yeah.
behavior.
And I think also there's just like, especially like it's pretty well established that like people in the ISB and like the Navy don't like Vader.
Yeah.
So like
Yep.
this is also them like sticking up to Vader,
Yeah.
which is funny.
It's really
Yeah. But like for Bode, like I think I might have gotten the twist spoiled. Because I think I knew the twist was coming, but when he force pushed Cal away, that was a crazy part.
Yeah.
But it was because I thought Bode and Cal were like, historians would call them roommates, You know what I mean? Like historians would call
So
them
I'm
best
not the only
friends.
one.
Yeah.
You know what I'm talking about? So like,
I'm
so
so
that's
glad-
why, and so like that's why I was like, dude, like no way. But and then also,
Also-
like about like, oh wait, yeah, Liam.
No,
go
I just want to
ahead.
mention, like, he literally called Cal his best friend,
Yeah.
Yeah.
introduced him to Tata, and I was like, don't say that and then do what you did.
Yeah, and then I mean,
You-
and like about the father thing after the like reveal, I thought he was like, oh, like he's just been lying this whole time.
Oh, okay.
Well, I never thought he was lying. I was like, he
I
definitely
didn't.
Yeah,
has
I
a
don't think he
daughter.
did either.
like
Yeah.
I didn't think he was lying up until the twist, and then I was like, oh, okay, like he's probably just been lying this whole time.
Oh, I see what
But
you mean.
then,
Yeah.
but then we get to the ISB facility and like she's there, and I was like, oh, like he hasn't been lying.
I mean, even after the twist, I was like, okay, so he like, yeah. I just never like it never clicked in my mind.
Right.
that maybe
Yeah,
he's
I mean,
lying.
I was just like,
Yeah,
I
I
don't know,
think-
like cynical.
I think for me it was just like the fact it was like a very dad moment to kind of just show a picture of his daughter because he did right at the beginning of the game when he's explaining like there's that whole scene where Cal asks him, "Oh, are you doing this for credits?" And he's like, "No, I'm just trying to make a safer world for my daughter." And then they have this talk about uh about him being a father and then showing a picture. I think that was really cool and it's just such a well fleshed out character. In a way, I wished he would have been like. I don't even know. I wish he had more. I didn't.
Wish
I
he
think the
survived.
twist.
Yeah.
Yeah, I wish he survived. I wish there was a different ending for him.
I think,
But
He's a cautionary tale for Cal, I think.
yeah,
Is the
exactly,
message. Yeah.
exactly. Yeah, but I would have. I think his death it has a huge impact on Cal and how he's supposed to, especially with the whole dark side embracing side of Cal now.
Yeah,
So his death is gonna mean a lot, especially if there is a third game, which I know they've planned to do it, but
I'm
I
pretty sure
hope
it's
they
in
lean into
development.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
but speaking of that, when Cal killed him, my
yeah.
first thought was he didn't have to do that.
Yeah.
Like, Poe didn't have to die. Cal did not have to kill him. Like,
Yeah.
even after like Cal like had the lightsaber pointed at him and was like I don't want to kill you. We can like call a truce right now and like just don't be an idiot anymore. He's like, yeah, can you promise that you can protect my daughter? He says yes, and then he still decides to attack Cal again, and I'm like, okay, come on. And like in that moment, Cal's like, okay, I have to kill him now, and I'm still thinking, no, you don't. Like, even though he just like turned on you again, like
I
really
feel like
thought,
See,
could have been
that
a
was
disarmament.
foreshadowed at the beginning when Cal killed the Ninth Sister, right? Because on Coruscant, like he gave her
Yeah.
like one chance to be like, you know, you can come back, you don't have to do this. You were a Jedi once, right? And like she thinks about it and is like, no. And then Cal instantly flips. He's like, okay, I gave her a
All right.
chance. Now let's do what must be done, right?
Yeah.
And it's the same thing with Bode. Like he gives him plenty of chances to just like stop, just like lay down his weapons, right? And like at that point, it was just one too many for him. And as someone who like just, you know, embraced his darkness, like right there, I
yeah,
think it made sense overall why he did that.
it made sense, but
It didn't have to
it didn't
happen.
have to
Yeah.
happen. Like,
That,
this is
that
a
was
really
just
good
Bode
segue
being a
into
dumbass.
talking
Yeah.
about like Cal's experience with the dark side, because I saw that happen and I thought, okay, yeah, Cal, like he has so much like fear of the dark side, yet he's like really good at using it, and it's really scary. And there was this one part in Battle Scars at the end of Seer and Cal's conversation. Cal says to Seer, you know, I'm not going to turn out like Trilla, right? And Seer hesitates, and Cal says again, right? And Seer goes, sure. Like that's exact that, and that's how that conversation ended.
Interesting.
And then the rest of Survivor happened, and I'm like, oh my
Yeah.
God.
And then also just like bring up Seer, from like the game's perspective, Seer's moveset is Cal's moveset when like he's in like his dark side mode.
Oh,
Yeah,
know that.
so like I mean like the way they like, yeah, I'm like they're like animations are like the exact same.
Yeah.
interesting.
And I think that's cool because we know Seer's like made peace with her dark side,
Yeah.
Right.
and obviously Cal's struggling with it.
Yeah. I think for me, the dark side, the entire thing of him becoming suddenly so strong is just another demonstration of the fact that the dark side is just an easy way to create a strength, but it's not like the more practical, not practical, but the more sensible or the Jedi way to get more powerful. And that demonstration is really kind of how it helps develop Cal's character a lot throughout the story.
Yeah, there's that quote from Yoda. I forget when he says it, but he says like quicker, easier the dark side is. I'm pretty sure that's
Exactly.
right. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. Any other thoughts on board, or do we want to move on to Dagon? Because I have.
Let's talk about Dagon.
Let's talk about
Let's talk about
Dagon.
Dagon.
I guess for Dagon, the sort of big thing we have to address is that this is like the first really mainstream appearance of any High Republic-esque content, right? And High Republic has been having books come out since, I want to say 2021-ish is when it started, right? Maybe 2020?
I think so.
Sort of,
Yeah.
sort of that time frame. And I think for most players, like Dagon and his story is like their first big introduction to the world of the High Republic. And in terms of talking about the big picture as a whole of like the High Republic lore interest in the game, Tanalorr is new. That was not in the books, but two plot points that were in the books where the Marauders that attacked Tanalorr while Dagon was there, they're the Nile. They're the main antagonist in the books, which was really cool to see. Just their mention, I think they were mentioned in like a single line.
They're not explicitly, well, so they say Marauders and then or like Raiders, but then in parentheses it says Nihil.
Oh, in the captions, or
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, like in the subtitles, which is really weird.
Yeah.
And like they have a database entry, but they're not explicitly.
Actually, this morning
named.
I was looking into it. There is a Force Echo apparently on Tanalorr where, of all people, Master Oppo Rancisis is the one that
on Tanalorr.
speaks and talks about the Nile, which was insanely cool. but yeah. And then yeah, so the Nile are the first big like book plot point like this from the High Republic to really come into a game. And the second one is the emergence. Like Brian, we were talking about this, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, it destroys like the moon of Kobo, or it hits Kobo and I think destroys the moon. Something. Basically, the emergence, to keep it brief, is like in the High Republic, the opening sequence of like the first book, kind of like basically through events that I will not spoil, a ship is forced out of hyperspace, and because of the extent of light speed travel, its parts are like split into like 1,000 different systems, right? Traveling at light speed. So it's like a bunch of meteors striking different systems, right? And one of those hit Kobo and caused the devastation on the moon, which I think that might not have been mentioned by name, but it was in the
No,
database,
it's
right?
like heavily
Oh, I've just
implied.
started reading that book, so
And it's
okay,
also the best
interesting.
opening sequence of any
Oh yeah,
book
that was sick.
ever. It's like the best opening act ever.
Yeah.
I'm a
Could
finish reading this
read High
book.
Republic, but like this game convinced me.
No, like Light of the Jedi, like that opening act is
The first
like,
third of that book is just one big action set piece. It's just phenomenal.
like
Yeah.
yeah, I'll like never forget like reading that for the first time.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean
Yeah.
it's just super cool to see like these obscure sort of book plot points come into the mainstream Star Wars, because we have the Acolyte coming out pretty soon, I think next year, right? And like that's also going to be a really big, High Republic centric thing, because it is telling its own story. I believe it's set a bit closer to the Phantom Menace in the timeline, but there's already like one or two characters from the High Republic books confirmed to appear. I don't want to spoil who that is, because if you haven't read the books, then yeah, it spoils that they don't die. But yeah, that tie-in is super cool. So yeah, as someone who has read Light of the Jedi pretty much opening day, and Brian, I'm guessing you read it around the same time
Yeah.
ish. It's super cool to see this payoff.
Yeah, and then I think I like, because I saw that like Dagon was from the High Republic, I thought they were gonna add more. At least in like a Force Echo, I thought like, oh, like one of them is
Agreed.
gonna be like Stellan or like Elzar like
Yeah, that'd be
talking.
so cool.
And that didn't happen, and I do think my hopes were too high for that. But it is so cool that like the robes and just like all like the chambers that like Cal did, I'm like all those like puzzle rooms were super cool.
Yeah.
And yeah, this
Wait, sorry, you mentioned Stellan. I just remembered something. In the new Lego Star Wars game, Skywalker Saga, there is a statue of Stellan Geos in the temple, which was really cool. That's a super cool tie-in.
Oh, that is really cool.
I thought that was sick. Yeah.
Yeah.
But like about Dagon himself, I personally wish he had gotten more again, like a lot of the characters in the game. I don't think that his motivations and backgrounds were fleshed out well enough. I wish they had done a lot more. Like to me, honestly, the entire idea that the entire reason he's going after Tanalor so violently and so aggressively, the way they just explain it as him being like, oh, it was his discovery, was not enough. I wish they had done a lot more to explain like his background, a lot more to explain. Like I wish there were more Force Echoes kind of going through the whole process of him finding Tanalor, the process of getting there. I wish that.
Okay, wait. As you were talking, Karan, something just clicked in my head of like why he would want to do that. I just remembered this. So I'm gonna keep it as vague as possible as to not spoil the end of Phase 1 of the High Republic, but okay, how do I do this? Basically, there is a disaster that occurs, right? Because of this, the Jedi are more scared than they normally would be.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I don't want to spoil what the disaster is, but they're in a state of like fear, right? And pretty much after this, the Nile Marauders are like, they're basically, this is not a huge spoiler, they're like sectioning off parts of the galaxy, controlling them, blocking hyperspace lanes, that sort of thing, which is sort of like the pitch for Phase 3 of the High Republic. But like basically, the Jedi are in a much greater state of fear at this point, right? And we don't see Dagon's story in the books at all in Phase 1 of the High Republic, which makes me think it's later in the timeline, during Phase 3, during that state of fear, right? So with that precedent going into it, Dagon finding a world that's just a sanctuary for the Jedi is insane. Like, given what occurred at the end of Phase 1, that's probably like a huge discovery, like just a safe place for the Jedi during a state of fear. And ultimately, we find out in the game the Nile do attack Tanalor as well, forcing him to leave or forcing the Jedi to leave, but like he still wants to stay. So given, I guess, the scope of the era, it's something that makes sense. But I do think if you're playing the game itself, it's a bit vague because
Yeah.
it's just
Uh-huh.
like he's obsessed with it. He wants to go there for like the bigger reasons aren't fully fleshed out, which maybe it's to not
Exactly.
spoil the High Republic books. I have no idea. But yeah.
Thinking right now that like everything you just said is probably like that's for that in the game is for the people who read the books, because like I was talking about this before we got on the podcast that it like I liked the High Republic stuff as someone who hasn't read the High Republic because it still made sense. But I also agree with Karan that like I found myself wondering like why is he so obsessed with Tanalor? Like I don't understand why he's like so adamant about
He
finding.
was so driven about it. Like every conversation that he has with Cal is just about him.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
nuts.
So angry for no
Craving.
reason. I'm like, bro, what
Exactly.
is your deal? Like,
Yeah, I think it was interesting because I thought he was going to be the main antagonist. So that
Yeah.
third fight with
Yeah.
him, I thought I was like, oh, this is the end of the game already. Then it didn't finish. So, and I agree that I thought he should have been fleshed out more. I think it's a really interesting choice to go with two antagonists, like a 1-2
Mhm.
type thing.
and it threw me for a loop. So
Yeah, like it
It
was
really did.
very interesting
Yeah,
to say the
it
Yeah.
least.
was.
this is the end of the game. Psych Bode is gonna be
Yeah.
literally.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was happy. I wanted so much more. I think my thing is that I didn't even care that the main plot didn't focus on Dagon as much. Like, if you guys have gone back after defeating Board on the other plans, you'll find a bunch of Force echoes which talk about
Boat,
Board as
right?
he's
Yeah.
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 So basically, as you go back, it's him at different stages in the game having these interactions and with objects, and like you get to see, oh, this is what Board was thinking at that point about his conversation with Cal. Like there was this one specific one where he kind of talks about how he wishes Cal would change his mind and just go to Tanalor alone with just like a smaller group of people, not get the entire path there. So
Yeah.
that was really cool to watch after. But I wish they had done that for Dagon as well, because I feel like he had such like I don't know if it was just me, but him and Santai agree if they had focused a lot on that. Like if they had 4 cycles for that, that would have been really, really cool.
Yeah, to an extent, I think Dagon and Centauri's story is maybe to hook people into the High Republic books, to be like, here's just a little glimpse of a story that happened. And yeah, I mean, they're not in the books that I've released yet, but
Yeah.
Phase 3 of the High Republic is dropping
On
later
me.
this year. They could be in those books. We don't know. We could get the story of the Nile attacking Tanalor and Dagon and everything, right? Like that is
Right.
very feasible given what this
Yeah.
game established.
And also, I think to your point about drawing people in, I think Dagon and Centauri being like romantic with each other
Mhm.
is something that I feel like people who haven't read the books or like really know anything about the High Republic would be interested in.
Yeah, because just to keep it vague again for spoilers, the High Republic Jedi are a bit looser with that sort of thing. There
I was
are
thinking
yeah.
that because as someone who
Yeah.
hasn't read the book, I was looking at them interacting like that and thinking, okay, like is their belief system like a little different back in the day, or are they just like really good friends who are like emotionally vulnerable with each other?
Easiest
Friendly.
way I'll explain it is that if Anakin was a Jedi during the High Republic, they probably would have like been chill with him being with Padme and like listened to it at least
Yeah.
and found a way to make
Okay.
it work.
And like I
yeah.
would say like Kanan's relationship with Hera
Yeah.
is the most like a High Republic Jedi, because like I feel like the Jedi in the High Republic are like actually authentically true to the values of the Order, whereas Jedi in like the prequel trilogy are only true to the Order in name only, and they try to uphold that through like tradition and stuff
Right.
and being strict,
I
which I
really
think
gotta
is my
finish
favorite
these
part of the
books.
High Republic, because like
Yeah.
It's a different take on the Force entirely. Like they emphasize a lot in the High Republic about how like the love you feel, I guess for the Order as a whole, the sense of community and light is the Order's strength, right? Whereas the prequels would say, oh, don't have attachments, like the exact opposite, right? And
Right.
it's just really cool to see how the Jedi devolve over time, which we could see in the Acolyte, we could see in the later phase of the High Republic. It's
Yeah.
possible.
I think that's what the Acolyte is like selling itself
Focusing
on
on- yeah.
is like the end of the High Republic into how the Jedi are in Phantom Menace.
Yeah.
I think we should talk a little bit about what we want to see from the third Jedi game. Because I know it's already been confirmed, as Anish said, it's under development.
I
I'm not
believe
sure.
so.
Yeah,
Yeah, I
I'm
don't think
not
we have a
sure when they're
release
planning.
date.
Yeah.
Actually, before we move on to talking about expectations for a third game, what do we think of Cal and Merrin? We didn't talk
Ooh.
about that.
That's true.
It made sense. I wasn't surprised after Fallen Order. I was like, yeah, that was probably gonna happen. Yeah.
Yeah.
I wasn't surprised that it happened. I was surprised when it happened because it was very
Yeah.
sudden. Because like she opens the portal and is like, "Do you trust me?" And I was like, "Okay, cool." He's just gonna say yes. They're gonna jump through the portal. He's gonna travel the way she travels.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Crazy. But then she kisses him. I'm like, "Girl, is now the time?"
I was like, oh, I mean,
I was
okay,
like,
but
okay.
also
Yeah.
Merrin has like her like butch mullet, so I was like,
Yeah. But it was, yeah. I enjoy it. I it's one of those relationships for me where I enjoyed them as friends, but I also enjoy them as being in a relationship. So like whether or not like made that happen, I was gonna be totally fine with them.
yeah.
Yeah,
Also, the mom and dad dynamic with Kata at the end, that was interesting.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
something
That was like,
I really
okay.
want to see next game. If it's just like them training her to like you
Mhm.
know use Jedi powers, but also Night Sister powers, that whole dynamic between them could be really cool.
Agreed.
I also want to touch on real quick just the dynamic between Cal and Merrin as far as being Force users. Because going back to the whole dark side thing with Cal, like Merrin, it like as a Night Sister, she uses the dark side, right? And then Cal as a Jedi is like not supposed to. I noticed in this game they kind of switched.
Yeah.
Like there was this one power that she had. When she like repairs the archway that Cal accidentally destroys and says something along the lines of like, "I'm like repairing the chaos that you created." I was like, that's very Jedi of her. That's very light side.
Yeah, I
And-
mean, and also like she stops Cal from like killing
Yeah.
Killing the
Definitely.
ISB officer. Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
And it was just so interesting to me to see them switch and also to see them like kind of using each other's abilities. And also like I took that as like this is an example of how the light side and the dark side can coexist, because the Jedi like in Cal's time were like really trying to push the fact that like there's the light side and there's the dark side. You have to stay on the light side, do not use the dark side. And like I've always like looked at like I've always looked like I feel like I'm like role playing as a Jedi right now, but like I've looked at the Force as like, why do you have to stick to one side?
Just decide which one.
Yeah.
Yeah, like why can't you
think-
use both? Why can't you like be a good person and still use both sides? And like why are some of the things the Jedi consider to be dark? Like why do they consider that a dark side thing? It doesn't make sense. So it was very nice to see both of them using each other's side of the Force.
I think Cal right now is struggling to find a balance, or trying to embrace his darkness. Is going to be something that Merrin's going to play a vital role in kind of resolving.
Yeah.
I think I look forward to it. I think that Merrin will be the reason, or I hope that the plot that they take is kind of focusing on how Merrin helps Cal accept his dark side and see what it means to be a Jedi post,
Yeah.
the fall of
Yeah.
the fall of the Jedi Order, what it means to be a Jedi. Because I think that was a question that Board kind of also like, as coming back to the gameplay mechanic, them Board handing Cal a blaster and Cal saying that that's not what Jedi usually use,
Mhm.
and Merrin kind of, I think it was Merrin who kind of says that this is a new time, so maybe
Yeah, that
it's
was
changing what
cool.
it means to be a Jedi, and that was really cool. So I think Merrin's gonna play a really important role in Cal's character development, in the sense that she'll be the one who guide him through that process.
Yeah, I think Jedi 3 has a ton of potential just because like if we're talking big picture stuff, like I'm assuming it's a trilogy of games. At least that's what they've planned, right? Probably like
Yep.
3-act
sure.
story. So if we're assuming this is the last like Jedi game, then we're starting the game off with Kata, Cal, and Merrin and Grease on Tanalorr, right? And
Yep.
they pledged to move the hidden path to Tanalorr, right? Was that how Survivor ended?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
they're still trying to figure out how to get the hidden path to Tanlor.
Okay.
But
And
that's their
also, I
whole-
think on Kobo they're trying to escape the Empire because the Empire, that visual of the starships at Kobo after the game at the game's end, that was beautiful. Anyway, sorry,
Yeah.
go ahead, Anish.
But yeah, what was I gonna say? Oh yeah, so like if we're assuming the game is gonna start like them on Tanalorr and like probably some of the path have moved over, they're essentially creating like a new Jedi order, so to say, like a new group of Force users, right? Because if we're thinking 10, 15 years beyond this game, you have Luke in his academy, you have Ahsoka, Ezra, whatever they're gonna do in the show, pretty much like another sort of grayish Jedi group of Force users, and then you have Cal and Merrin and whatever they're gonna build up, right? And if they're with the path, that's a whole group of younglings, a whole future of the Jedi Order, but also like they're not just going to be Jedi. Like they could learn to harness Night Sister powers from Merrin, learn Jedi powers from Cal. I think what we're gonna see is a future where it's like, you know, you can use the dark side, you can give in, but as long as it's in check, that's okay, which is not a traditional Star Wars lesson to teach, right? But like, given the era, given the setting, given what Cal has been through, it makes sense. That's where he would go. He's not going to go back to being who he was during the Clone Wars, like a super upstanding kind of Jedi who just wants to, excel and just be ethical, right? Like we've established, being a survivor, the game is called Jedi Survivor, right? Like
Survivor, yeah.
yeah, just being a survivor during this point means you have to adapt. It's like I always go back to that line from Saw Gerrera during Bad Batch. It's like a really obscure line, but he says like it's a new era. You have to either adapt and you have to either adapt and change if you want to survive or die with the past, right? And like that really sort of sticks throughout this whole 20-year gap between episodes 3 and 4. Like the Jedi have to change to survive. Luke ultimately
Okay.
did not change. He kind of stuck to the old ways, which eventually hurt him. Ahsoka and Ezra and that branch of Jedi, we don't know yet what they're gonna do. But at least with Cal's branch of Jedi, like there is a future for them, right? Like I think whatever they establish on Tanalorr, I'm hoping goes far. Like I'm talking beyond the Battle of Endor, beyond the original trilogy era, as in like we have a new group of Jedi going into the future.
I really hope like what I would want to see for how they like start teaching the Force to younglings is not that there's a light and a dark side, but that you like
It's like what emotions you
exactly
like,
that's what I'm
draw.
trying to say. Like what like using the Force is an emotional experience. You just have to learn how to stay in control of whatever emotion you're feeling, even if it's negative. Because I don't think it's bad to like use a negative emotion, but like if you're using anger to use the Force, you really got to be careful.
Yeah, and
That's what they should
I
start.
think the entire point of like as you said, Cal's order is going to be based on balance. It's going to be based on how we combining different disciplines of the Force or different ways that people use the Force to find safety, to find security, to find maybe spirituality in a way. Just find a connection with the Force that isn't tainted by politics or like beliefs. It's just going to be a purer form of connecting with the Force.
Yes.
I don't know
Yeah.
if that kind of ties back into High Republic. I don't know if
that definitely
Republic-
does. And
It
like
kind of
phase two,
does,
like
yeah.
phase 2 of the High Republic has a lot of like different Force sects and like how they interact with the Jedi. Because even in phase 2 of the High Republic, which is like before phase 1, people view the Jedi as like arms of the Republic, which is how they're viewed in like the prequels.
in the prequels, yeah.
So
Yeah, there's a group of Force, well, they're not Force users. There's a group during phase 2 of the High Republic who believe that using the Force at all is a bad thing, even if you are Force sensitive. They view it as like the Force freely gives energy to us all, gives life to us all. When you use and manipulate the Force, you're taking from it, right?
Mhm.
So that's really cool. This is not Survivor
I think
at all. It's just a tangent, but yeah, I thought that was
Really interesting. Yeah.
it's an interesting concept to begin with, but as phase 2 of the High Republic goes on, I personally feel like, and we can talk about this in a later episode, but I personally feel like that concept evolves into something different because of stuff that happens with the story and like that group and like who they are and like their leader and stuff. But like, yeah.
Have you finished phase 2, Brian?
No, I'm almost done with Cataclysm, and I
Nice.
need to get, what is it? Is it Path of Vengeance?
Path of Vengeance
Right,
is the last one. Yeah.
And yeah, just all this talk about like dark side and like Jedi and stuff. I think High Republic does a wonderful job with that, and especially contrasting how prequel era Jedi and like including Yoda, who's in the High Republic, like how he tells Anakin, and like how like the Jedi basically preaches shut out all bad emotions. I think it's very obvious that that's a very, and like in real life, that's a very unhealthy thing to do.
Yeah.
You know, that's like extremely
Yeah.
toxic and like unhealthy. And then seeing that being changed in the High Republic is really cool. And
How central of a role does Yoda have in the High Republic books? I
like
know there's a tangent,
none.
I guess.
He's just like
Not
randomly
a
name
ton.
dropped as
Yeah.
this like
Okay.
smart guy.
He's in
Really
phase
Right.
2 a decent bit more
He's
than
in phase two
1.
more than phase one.
Yeah, phase
On the
1.
Okay.
council at this time.
He's not
or-
in it too much. He is on the council. Is he the Grand
But-
Master of the council?
Yeah, so in phase one at least, he's Grandmaster, but there's 2 Grandmasters, I think. So like he's like taking like a leave of absence or something,
Yeah.
like a sabbatical type
interesting.
thing.
Yeah,
Like
and
training
when he takes a
younglings
sabbatical,
on a
the events
ship.
of the books happen, and the galaxy goes to shit, and he comes back and he's like, bruh.
No, that Yoda, oh my god, okay, like this is a spoiler for like Midnight Horizon, I think, but like
Yeah.
Yoda in that book
That was
specifically is
phenomenal.
like crazy.
Yeah, because he shows up at the very end of everything, and he's like, what
Yeah,
did y'all
and
do?
he's like, what the hell is happening? What the fuck do I have to clean
It's
up?
so funny.
It's
Damn,
so
okay.
good.
Damn. Okay.
Anyways,
Okay.
everyone should like read the High Republic. 'cause
Yeah,
it's the
we've
best
talked
thing
about it a
ever.
lot, and if you want to know where to start, Light of the Jedi. That is the first book in phase 1. It is not the
Uh-huh.
first chronologically, because phase 2 is a prequel to phase 1, but Light of
Right.
the Jedi is the best starting point. And then, yeah, if you want more recommendations, there's guides online, or you can ask in our Discord. I'm sure there's people
Sounds
who
good.
help. So
Yeah. Coming back to the third Jedi game, I just quickly remembered this. Anish, you said that you wanted to start from the path being the hidden path being taken to Tanler. I was thinking the third game kind of focuses on getting the paths to Tanler, not that they've already gotten there. Because I feel like that's a conflict that's being set up like after you finish the board fight. Like if you go back and there are some conversations that you'll have on what was it on Jeddah, where it's kind of hinting to we need to find the members of the hidden path to get them to Tanlor. So my thing is that it's gonna start off with them figuring out how to get them to Tanlor.
interesting.
Yeah, and I think that's a good point too, because in Kenobi, like, you know, like he's working with the path.
Yeah.
And he's being hunted by the Inquisitors. But also, I'm gonna be 100% honest. I didn't, and I still don't know if I expect to see Cal's splinter group exist until the end of Jedi. You know, like even in Fallen Order, like I didn't think that like I kind of expected his story to end with him dying or like disappearing or something. And
Interesting.
like it's not just because like he doesn't show up in anything else, but especially after the path that he's taken in Survivor, it's a very like interesting place, and I just don't know where
Do you
it'll
think-
go.
Yeah, I mean,
Do you think
Nice.
his dark side's gonna lead him to kind of it to his demise, like the end of that entire splinter group? Do you think
Yeah.
that's what they're gonna try to set up?
Yeah,
think
but
so.
also I don't know, because I also personally thought the end of Survivor was a great place to end. Like,
Yeah.
like in general too.
okay, yeah.
So
I think that makes sense storytelling wise, but like again, there's gonna be another one, and they probably are gonna want to connect it to another piece of media. You have to like bring in that aspects, right? Like, realistically, even if Cal doesn't survive the end of Jedi 3, if Bode's daughter does, then she could be in something else, or Merrin could be in something else. We don't know. Like, there's gonna be some level of connectivity that they're gonna want to establish with the game, as in not
Yeah.
just like let's kill Cal, end it here, but also like
Yeah.
I don't know. I think his order has a ton of potential just to be like we said, like the healthiest version of the Jedi Order that we can see, right? And like if we're talking like really, really far beyond where we are, like New Jedi Order post Episode 9, Rey's Order, like if some version of Cal's group exists at that point in time, and then we have Ahsoka and Ezra and whatever their group is going to be. Like, there's a lot of potential because we have 3 big groups now existing, right? And obviously, we don't know how far Cal's will get, but I really do hope that they do make it far, because the messaging of, like, you know, an order that, you know, doesn't just say shut out your negative emotions, but like accept them, process them, you know, reason with them, and keep them in check. Like, that's such a healthy message for us, the viewers, as fans, right?
Yes.
And having that order lead to
Agreed.
ruin would be, I don't know, it's just a little distasteful. That's just what I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And like Brian mentioning the like how Cal's story is gonna end. didn't even think about that until you mentioned it, but like I honestly see Cal's story ending one of 2 ways. Either like we get a nice epilogue of him as like at the end of his life where like he has been successful with his new order, or he dies to his fatal flaw of not being able to leave the fight against the Empire and
Yeah.
fighting the
Yeah.
Empire. That's what
Like that's kind of what where I was going, is like he's so adamant about being militant
yes.
against the Empire that he's,
Yeah.
you know, like,
And it would be really nice
it's
to
not
see
gonna
him
happen.
be able to leave that and create a new order and leave that legacy.
Yeah.
But I honestly don't know if he's capable of doing that.
Yeah.
You know what would be cool? I was just thinking about it. If he has a spiritual connection with the Jedi Order, if I don't know if that comes in the form of a Force Ghost or through him going through the archive that Seer created in the game, and that allows him to kind of reconnect with the core values of what it means to be not necessarily a Jedi, but just the core values of what being a Jedi used to mean. Maybe something in the High Republic. Maybe he finds information from Centauri Kree's records or from Dagon's records that show him what it meant to be a Jedi back in the day. And that kind of influences his entire storyline throughout Jedi 3. I think that would be cool. I don't know if that's gonna happen though. Yeah, I don't know if that's gonna happen though.
And
Well, I mean, there was that one beat in the Luke comics where
he talks to Elzar.
talks to Elzar.
Yeah.
Something like that, where it's like just a hologram of a High Republic or even before High Republic Jedi Master talking. Like, that can be cool, not just for like, oh cool, it's an Easter egg, but also like, you know, just further wisdom from the past Jedi. Because I think, you know, we've discussed like the High Republic lore in this game like really added to it. Like, if we essentially, like, let's imagine a version of this game where that didn't exist, right? Like, it was just get to Tantalor, which is a planet. You have no High Republic backing to it. Like, it wouldn't be as interesting, right? So just the whole historical precedent of the Jedi that's being placed on Cal is really interesting, because like it's almost as if the Jedi of the past are like selecting him in a certain say as like, you're the one who has to carry on the legacy, right?
Yeah, none of the Skywalkers are the chosen one. Cal Kestis is
Exactly.
the chosen one.
Yeah. And I mean, I think there's also another thing, right? Like seeing them in live action.
Ooh,
Yeah.
interesting. Okay, I don't know if you remember, but at the end of Mandalorian season 2, there were already rumors of a Jedi coming to save Din Djarin and the rest of the crew from Moff Gideon's ship. Maybe this is just really obscure. And there was some talks about Cal showing up because it was right
Hey, I remember that.
around.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I was, because I had just finished the game, I was actually really excited because I was like, oh, that would be such a cool way to get them into the Star Wars universe. I knew it wasn't gonna happen, but I hope. I feel like if they tie it in with, I don't actually know what show they could tie it in.
It's tough because if we look at the big picture of Star Wars media right now, the big thing is the Mandoverse, right? Like, aside from
Yeah.
Andor and Acolyte as like separate things, like I don't know how they could connect to the Mandoverse. Maybe a separate project years down the line they could show up. I don't know, but I would be 100% down to see any of the crew in live action. And
Because
yeah.
they were planning to make the Mandalorian, the Mandoverse end in a movie, if I'm not wrong, right?
Yeah.
I could see them potentially. I have to check if is there a timeline intersection right now between Mandalorian and this game?
Well, this game happens way before.
Like
right?
way before.
Oh yeah, you're
like,
right. You're
a
right.
while
You're right.
before.
You're right. You're right. Way before. You're right. Oh,
So like
damn.
I think it'd be cool to see them in live action, but done tastefully.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And like
Yeah.
I do not want to see like a Mantis crew story in live action. You know,
Yeah, just like an appearance.
I wouldn't want to see that. Or like I don't even know if I'd want to see Cal in live action. And if they do, they better cast Karen Monahan, because like if they don't,
I mean,
like,
why
like,
wouldn't
like,
they? Like, there's literally
Yeah,
no
he's perfect.
But like if any of the other crew were to show up, like just show up, I think that'd be cool.
Yeah, like if it's just Grease, just as like a pirate
Yeah.
for like some side mission or something
Yeah.
for fun,
I
like
would
I'd be down for
actually
And
that.
that'd be so
lose
funny.
my mind if that
And
happened.
like also I feel like even like I think Merrin is the most like
Compelling character for it. Yeah.
yeah, or like most likely to show up in live
I think that's a fair point because we have I mean, we were talking about this before as well. The Ahsoka series, we have Morgan Elsbeth appearing, who is a Night Sister or has been theorized to be a Night Sister, right? So like,
Yeah.
if we're gonna see more of that group of Force users, like the surviving Night Sisters in this era, like Merrin could be at the very least mentioned, if not make an appearance at some point down the line. Like, I doubt she's in Ahsoka, but like at some point in future seasons or a different show, it's very possible because we have the Night Sister link already.
But I think as the process is right now, I don't see the Mantis crew kind of fitting in anytime soon. Until they actually maybe Jedi 3, depending on what time gap it creates, could potentially lead to a time, but I don't see it happening anywhere near the Mandoverse timeline or the yeah.
Sort of the
But-
other way around. For characters we'd want to see in Jedi 3 from other pieces of media, two jump out
Ooh.
right away to me. One is Quinlan Vos, because if they're talking about the path, he was established in Kenobi as surviving up to that point, right? And being one of the
Right.
leaders of the path. It's very feasible for him to appear. The second one is
Okay.
Reba, because
Yeah.
Yes.
I
at
thought
the end of
Reba
Kenobi,
was gonna
yeah,
be in
I thought she was going to Survivor too, yeah. And then I checked the timeline, I was like, maybe not. But like, if Survivor is or Survivor 2, no, Fallen Order 3, whatever. If Jedi 3 is like another couple years after Survivor, that would probably be like the Rebels-ish time frame, right? Like Reba could appear. I'd be down for that because like we don't know when her story is going to continue next. So this would fit really well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I would love to see Quinlan Vos. Quinlan is one of my favorite
Yeah.
characters. Like, you guys do not understand how much I love this man. Like, that would be amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah, and after Dark Disciple, Quinlan interacting with Merrin after
would be
everything that went down, yeah,
Cool.
that would be amazing.
Oh my god. Because also I noticed that Merrin's arc kind of goes in the same direction as Ventress, where Ventress was like she was a Sith. She used the dark side in the way that the Sith do, and Merrin like never had that experience. But like, Ventress came out of like a very dark experience, like and out of like an experience using the dark side in a way that hurt her to becoming like more Jedi-like, and like
Yeah.
Merrin kind of did the same thing. So
Right.
it would be cool, like just in general to see Quinlan and Merrin interact, but also like if Merrin knows anything about Ventress, like who she was, or if like Quinlan tells her about
would be
a nice
so
sister,
cool.
like this is Ventress,
That'd be
this is
so cool.
her life. Like that would I would die. That would be amazing.
Okay. Triton Squadron out.
Thank you for listening.